501c3 nonprofit status. You can't have it both ways. So we're going to continue to fight. And thank you for having me on.
And let me just jump in too, real quick, and say that
Yeah, jump in
last
now, Bella.
Friday, I'm jumping in, and then I'm and then so last Friday, uh, and it's so important to get the community involved. And I really have to just give you so much thanks, Priscilla and Pastor Bruce Walls, because we have to advocate this out to the public. You know, our local and state legislators are doing the hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, but it's right there in front of them. And you were on the front lines with us when Blue Hub was at the SOA power plant celebrating their 40th anniversary. And we were out there. We were championing our cause. And they didn't come and talk to us. But people stopped and were shocked as what we were doing and what is happening. That this nonprofit is having a celebration while they're really doing a really taking away and
Just
really altering in devastating ways the lives of homeowners.
service to the
So
community.
last Friday, they actually halted their shared appreciation mortgage program. They have suspended it, not only in Massachusetts, but in the 10 other states that they're operating in. And what does that tell you? When they were so arrogant to say that the judge is wrong, that the homeowners are wrong, that everybody's wrong, but now they stop. That's why we're winning. That is why we're winning.
Okay, Mr. Ursula, let's hear from you.
Okay, am I coming through all right?
Yes,
Can you hear
we can
me?
hear you. Yes, we can.
Oh my goodness. You can?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I will start with, I will give you a little story, beginning of the story with one of the homeowners that had, along with Blue Hub Capital. When it was all said and done, he had it from 2004, and just this year, I believe, that he was trying to get out of it. Now he's older, and he and his wife want to move on. He ended up to be able to get out of this loan, paying them over $89,000 to get out of it. And then all that was left for him, for he and his wife to continue their life as senior citizens that have worked all their life, with $17.42. That's what he went home with. And this
That is awful. That is highway robbery.
It definitely is. I want to say that if we think that that could not happen to us, it could happen to anyone. And when we are out here fighting, we are not fighting just for us that we know about. We're fighting for everyone, because you might have a neighbor or even yourself that is going through something like this. So I will go on to the fact that we have gone to see the Attorney General, and we had a meeting with her, and one of the homeowners definitely stood up and asked about why not involve the homeowners in your decisions, because the homeowners are the one that are having the experience. She listened to that, and she has used that as her soundbite that she wanted to hear from every homeowner. Now, the homeowners have been trying to contact her. She said she wants email, she wants call, and really and truly, she has not done anything as the Attorney General to Blue Hub Capital. She hasn't done anything at all. She is just backtracking and like floating in the middle to say which way it's gonna go, but she is not gonna do anything against them. And then we also know that Blue Hope Capital backed her up, just like they backed up the governor. And seriously, they're working for Blue Hope Capital, not for us. Even though that the court has deemed it as they are not being charitable, she's still not doing anything about it. She just says she wants to hear from us. So we let her hear from us and does nothing.
So the fact that this Blue Hub Capital has been found a predatory lender, does that mean that they really honor charitable donation and they should not have a 501c3?
Correct.
And can the Attorney General remove that status from them? So that's what we want her to do, right?
Yes, that's what we like her to
We
do.
want her to remove their 501c3 status.
Yes, because they're not charitable.
So the fact that they're not so the fact that Nadella, could you explain more when you say that they are suspending their share appreciation? What does that actually mean for the homeowners that are under Blue Hub Capital now, that are like Derek said, he'd have to pay 50% of his mortgage. The people that are in it now, how will they be able to get some type of settlement, some type of money back, or how does that work?
That is still going through the process. So when we won that first few step, because it is very unusual that a judge would say, making summary judgment, most of the time it's something that would go to trial. But he said point blank, as a matter of law, this is what the Blue Hub has done. So now comes the next step to see what the course of remedy would be. And those ought to be monetary remedies, right? Because as the court said, just because you have done this product, you say that the homeowners would be better off. The judge disagreed with that. So there is a financial harm, and the judge has to make that determination. So we're waiting for that. What Blue Hub is doing by halting this is a front-facing action. It's not a back-tracing action. That is what the court is deciding for homeowners who are in this process right now. What Blue Hub is doing going forward is saying, if we give a mortgage, we're not going to use shared appreciation. But that's significant. That is significant. That really just, and they're appealing the judge's decision. But for us, we're the lawyers, the attorneys are working on a response now in the decision that Blue Hub made. We still need to show that as that we pay our taxes, that we pay our bills, that we're responsible citizens, we're responsible homeowners, we're still vested in the community, but now the onus and the pressure needs to be put on Blue Hub to come to the table and actually halt this program, but now work to make the homeowners that they took advantage of whole again. And we're waiting for that process.
Right. Well, I mean, I tell you, it's just I know the battle you all have been in. I've only been with you all, I think, since 2023, but as soon as I found out what was going on, I joined onto your bandwagon, because back in the late 80s, early 90s, the same thing was happening. That's how Mass Affordable Housing Alliance was born. That's how NACA was born. And I want to do a shout out to NACA and Bruce Marks for the work that they did, how they helped support you all. This is, this is really a win-win for our community. But also with that win-win, that to teach us a lesson that the first lesson is you don't go nowhere without a lawyer, okay? Especially if you're going to sign papers for real estate. That's the first lesson that I would say that we need to learn. The second lesson is even though we're going through hard times or we need something, don't jump at the first apple that comes to you. You know, look around, search and see, you know, how you can do better or find a better agency because they're predatory. Predator they they're predatory. That's exactly what they are. And they have been found out. And I have to really commend you all for the work that you all did. Because you said, what, 8 years, Nadella? And then you took them to
No, it's
court?
going on 8
And
years.
and the court case took what, like 6 years? I mean, 5?
Court, we filed it in 2020.
Okay.
We filed in 2020 and they just made the decision this last 2025. But it took us like almost another year and a half of just preparing before we even filed the case, of us organizing and collecting stories and actually educating the homeowners that, but Blue Hub wrote a narrative, and underneath that narrative was their real motive. The narrative that they wanted to say was they were going to help the homeowners, that they would do what the banks wouldn't do, which is help homeowners. And they got a green light and a thumbs up from then Attorney General Maura Healey. So, the top consumer enforcer was saying Blue Hub is a good group. So, it's not just the homeowners believing it, but the government also gave them a free pass. Where was the bar that really investigated
Well,
who Blue Hub is and what they were about? Because when we started to expose this, Sheila Dillon down at the city of Boston, outraged, upset, some of these state city councilors, Andrea Campbell, who at the time worked on the city council, she was shocked. But yet Blue Hub is still in existence, and they're the ones that actually that open the bridge for Blue Hub to operate in the community. So without their opening that bridge, Blue Hub wouldn't even exist, wouldn't even have set up shop in Roxbury to claim themselves as an urban social organization. So I would think that the government would be the one to speak the loudest and take the action first. But they rely on their ego.
I'm sorry, the Attorney General, isn't she supposed to be the people's lawyer? Isn't she supposed to advocate for the people? So
Yes.
what's all that about? Well, you know what? I fact because of OPCF that Elise Cherry gave money to Maura Healey's campaign, gave money to Andrea Campbell's campaign, gave money to a lot of elected officials' campaigns, and that is why we need different people in office to represent us. We need real people who care about the community, who are going to go out there and fight for us like they say they are. It's time out. It's time out for us to continue to keep reelecting the same people, and they saying the same old thing, and they're not doing anything. They're not doing nothing about it. Look, we just had a mayor race, and she didn't have a race. She just walked right in because no one went up against her, and that is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. Next year is the governor's race. We need to when these people do this, we need to remove them. That's one way we can let them know that we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and enough is enough.
When it comes to Blue Hub, the governor signed into law, as Derek said, this law that grants immunity to use shared appreciation. And if you violate the Massachusetts laws, you are not held accountable. It's unheard of. No one has that type of leverage, and Blue Hub's the only one using the shared appreciation. This is a specific law to shield them from enforcement
Mhm.
from violating the government laws. And you know what the governor said when she was asked about it? She said she didn't even read it, and she blamed it on the legislative that introduced the bill to her. She just signed it. What does that go to say? Who are they working for? They're not working for us. They're working for political influencers with deep pockets that are calling the shots. And that's a shame. And we should not be able to stand for that. It's ridiculous. It's unheard of.
Right, right. And so these other so Blue Hunters actually made a statement that they are gonna. So what is it? What are they gonna do with the shared appreciation? They're gonna suspend it. They're going to uh reverse it. What are they gonna do? Because I want
Well, you know, they're
to
right
know
now
what's gonna happen because it's still
they're going to suspend operating or using the shared appreciation model. They're gonna they're gonna halt that and wait for as they say, the decision on their appeals. So they halted it. So now they're waiting for the judge to decide this. But again, it goes to show you they kept saying that this was wrong, that everybody got it wrong. So if everybody got it wrong, why are they halting their program? There's an average from 2020 to 2025, 315 petitions for foreclosure in Massachusetts. So people are still losing their homes. So why
right.
isn't Blue about helping them?
Mhm.
Because it's not
Mhm.
making money for them. So the math is zero, profit. So zero homes that are undervalued equals a zero product for Blue Hub. That's the math for them. If it's not making money for them, they're not doing it. And that means that they're not a charitable
Right.
organization. It's all about the money. It's all about their investors. And the Attorney General needs to revoke their charitable status.
Mhm. Mhm.
Definitely. I totally agree. I totally agree. Because from what I understand, there have been some people that started this fight, but have actually lost their lives before the decision was even
Yes.
made. So can you it's very difficult when you're fighting a battle and you are so overwhelmed by this battle, and then you come down with a sickness, and then you die. And they continue to do what they're doing. They ought to be ran out of here. For real, for real. And I give the National Coalition Against Predatory Lender 10 fingers up because you did it. You literally said, listen, we are not going to take it. We're taking you to court. We're taking you to the Attorney General. The governor's already been bought. We know that. The fact that she signed that bill, she didn't have to sign that bill the way it was. She could have took that piece out. If she was really a representative of the people of Massachusetts, that's what she would have did. And I don't understand why she didn't. But I guess if you had a friend for the last 20 years that been funding your campaigns and stuff, she's being bought. And that's the problem with a lot of our elected officials. They're bought and paid for. And that's why we're in the conditions that we're in now because of these, I hate to say this word, but I'm going to say it, trifling politicians that we have. I said it and I mean it because we see what's going on. Look at we asked for elected a school committee 4 years ago. We didn't get an elected school committee, right? Because the mayor thought, the mayor thought we didn't need it or she didn't want it or whatever. But now look at what's going on. White Stadium, all right? Now, I'm of the belief that if we had elected school committee, we may not have to be dealing with White Stadium at all because the elected school committee will say, no, just rebuild the stadium rebuilt it. We don't need a beer garden. We don't need all this other extra stuff. We don't need to support the soccer team. Whoever's I can't remember the woman's name. But come on, you're supposed to be representing us. And it's sad. It's really sad. And we know there's city councilors that agree with everything she say and do. And so it's like the city is messing with us, the state is messing with us. And if we don't get up and go out and vote and make some changes, shame on us. That's why I do the work that I do, because I'm sick and tired. I don't want to run for no office, but I'm sure working to train some folks up to run, because that's what we need. We need people that really, really care. We need people that have good and great ideas. We need organizer advocates. We need people that really, really care. And there are some. There's not that many, but the ones that are, they come through. And I have to give my girl Julia Mejia kudos, because she shows up and she does the work. So I'm happy about this. I really am. Because enough is enough. Come on. This is 2025. And look at us. We're in worse condition than we were in 1995, if you ask me. Except for the National Coalition Against Predatory Lending.
Yeah, Derek, do you want to jump in? You know me, I'll run my mouth a mile a minute.
Well, I just think Priscilla's correct, and we really do have to continue to fight. We will continue to fight. It's just appalling that they've been able to do what they've been able to do. And I'm once again calling out Senator Feeney for pushing that horrible legislation through, the governor signing Amendment 269. But I'm thanking God for the judge, who got it right, who's calling it a predatory lender. We're looking for to be delivered from that, Sam, and then we're looking for um, people need financial compensation. When all the interest rates were low, when it was 3% and lower, we were locked into a 6 point something mortgage. We couldn't get out of it. We couldn't benefit from it. My credit now is excellent. I haven't missed a payment. We're doing well, but I can't benefit from it. We're just kind of trapped. So we're going to keep fighting the fight. And once again, Priscilla, I thank you for having us on your show.
You're welcome
Yeah, we tried to bust up the party and
I tell
you
you, I
guys got
like
close. You guys got close to busting up that 40th anniversary. We were all out there and you were
I
out there
know,
with us.
I felt like we were America's Most Wanted because they had our pictures. They had
right?
the friends in. We were America's public enemy #1 to Blue Hub.
Yeah, yeah. But a lot of people, and the fact that they called the police on us and told us we couldn't use our bullhorn, I was like, I've been protesting this city for 20 years. I always use a bullhorn. Oh, well, the mayor created some ordinance. Well, I don't care about your ordinance. We free speech, and what they did to us needed to be exposed. It definitely needs to be exposed, and that's what we have to do. Sometimes we have to take it to court, and then when to the streets, you know. And so I'm just happy.
Try to
I'm to be
work on
proud
doing
of.
yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, I think we're going to try to work on it's very interesting how little for a national story with really political implications,
Yes.
um real political implications, the lack of coverage that this is getting. But if it was, someone in a different zip code, maybe living in Wellesley or Brookline, that was a victim of a Ponzi scheme, they'd be working overtime to make sure that they got their what monies they lost and investments they lost back. But
mhm.
what we're hearing about, I know they're victims, but maybe the focus shouldn't be on Jeffrey Epstein and his blue book or whatever, but talking about the people who are here living now and are victims of Elise Cherry and Blue Hub Capital. I mean, come on, let's get real about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's really, it's just when you think about it, and the fact that you continue the fight, I mean, you could have given up. Some people would have given up and said, no, we're not gonna win. We're not gonna win. But like I said, when we fight, we win. And unfortunately, we got a lot of more fighting to do, But I'm so happy. I'm really happy about this, I'm happy to have met you guys and to, this to have worked
What
with
was
you. Go
so
ahead.
interesting too, sorry Priscilla, is that that day of the 40th anniversary, we are members also. And we were not allowed to come in. Like Derek said, they had you, like they have your picture and everything. But we've been members for many years and paying them for many years with the interest and everything. And we were not allowed to be part of that. I do not understand it because we were going to go in there and speak our piece,
Disrupt.
and stuff. But it's the Attorney General that I'm truly, truly disappointed on. Truly. Because
Didn't she
definitely
do
she
something
isn't
though?
doing anything.
Did she do something? I can't never, I can't, some kind of corpus brief or something. What does that mean? I really didn't understand that. Still don't understand it. Could you tell me what that means?
I will defer that to Nardella. She can do a better job than I can.
Sure. So when the signed that law that said a nonprofit that uses shared appreciation is exempt from violating Massachusetts laws, right? Blue Hub, that was signed on a Wednesday. Blue Hub that following Monday went with that new law into the court, said, yes, this new law needs to make our case, the homeowner's case against Blue Hub, retroactive, and therefore the case needs to be thrown out. So we had to file, legal paperwork to, on our position on it.
But when
But
they say,
then so the amicus brief is the Attorney General stepped in and said, as a matter of law, that the new law is not retroactive. So Blue Hub cannot go back and say that this would wipe out our lawsuit. The new law affects people with mortgages going forward, not the ones who filed the class action lawsuit against Blue Hub. So that's how the Attorney General weighed in. So she didn't weigh in to say Blue Hub is right, then that wipes out the lawsuit. She said, Blue Hub, you're wrong on this point, and the lawsuit can go forward and it's not retroactive. So that's how the Attorney General weighed in. But we forced it, we also forced her hand, because she should have weighed in on this, at the very beginning when we were filing. Many of us, the homeowners, we filed complaints when Maura Healey was Attorney General. We filed complaints when Andrea Campbell is the Attorney General. So they knew about this.
right,
They
did
knew
you go see her when she was a city councilor?
we
Andrea
we
Campbell.
Andrea Campbell, when she was at the Boston City Council, the homeowners shared their personal stories with her. She knew. She knew. And we were actually there in the Judiciary Committee the first time we had to testify. And she was there on another matter. And she walked past us and put her hands on the shoulders of Elise Cherry. You must have imagined the looks on our faces.
Like you all weren't there.
Like we weren't there.
See, this is, you know what? This is so sad. I wish that there was some kind of way that we could take money out of politics, out of people running for office, because I believe if money wasn't You know, everybody's trying to get this money, trying to get this money. But what you're doing, you're being bought up. You're being bought, sold and bought. That's what you're doing. And we, as community people who work in the community, who love our community, who know right from wrong, and when we see wrong, we call it out. We need to keep doing what we're doing. We gotta keep doing it. Does you know we next year I believe is an election year for Andrea Campbell as well. You know, we need to get these people out of office who do not really represent us. Our taxes go up. You know, I mean, it's just it's devastating to us. A lot of people are going through a lot of different things. You know.
Home ownership is not a partisan issue, and predatory lending is not a partisan issue. As I said, it's 315 petitions for foreclosures. That's happening since 2020, a month. People are losing their homes. And so, you can't say Massachusetts, all this talk about, being progressive and democratic and fighting for the little guy and they're against all of these billionaires or making money. Well, they're millionaires making money. And they're literally wiping out the working class. We're the working poor because of them and their inactions. And shame on the governor, shame on the legislators that know about this and don't want to weigh in, that don't have a spine and weigh in. But I also want to really hold up and lift up Representative Michelle Dubois out of Brockton, and Senator Lydia Edwards, who wrote these bills, H 1145 and S 731, that's going to do something about shared appreciation mortgage. We're not just working for us, but we're working for potential victims out there that they need to be protected from predatory lending.
Because if they want, they could just change the name and keep on doing the same old, correct? Because that's what people do. They change their name and they continue the madness.
Yes, absolutely. Well, they say that they don't make any money on this, but
I wish I had a salary of almost $1 million a year.
exactly. Well, I certainly, if I wasn't making any money, why would I be throwing a 40th anniversary at the swanky solar power plant? Okay. That cost them a pretty penny to pat themselves on the back about that. You can't have it both ways. You really
I know, and
can
I saw some
have it
people
both
that I
ways.
knew there. Yeah, I
Okay.
see some people that's supposed to be for the community up in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When we say we're grassroots, we're grassroots. And thank God that you came and you heard us
That's so
and
true.
you stuck with us. You are sticking with us, and we are
Yeah.
we are so grateful for you, for Bruce Marks and NACA, that really believed our stories. We aren't making these. Derek, share your story because he has a
No. I remember what
position on
happened before
this.
Well, when we were in trouble with our mortgage, somebody gave me a flyer that said Boston Community Capital could help us. And that's who Blue Up Capital changed their name from Boston Community Capital to Blue Up Capital. And it just said if you have income, we can help you. So we thought, thank God, they're going to help us. We were underwater on our mortgage, and they brought us in, and we signed all the paperwork. They never told us about this Sam. That's the first thing I want to say. We didn't know that, and they had me as the poster child. I went on MSNBC Chris Hayes show with Elise Cherry talking about the program because I thought they saved us. Few years after, about 4 or 5 years after we got into this mortgage, interest rates started to fall. So I called Auburn Mortgage, who is the mortgage holder, and said, can I refinance just for a lower mortgage, just for a lower interest rather? And they said, no, we don't do that. And I thought that was surprising. And then I got a card in the mail from the National Coalition Against Predatory Lending and a Boston Globe article that talked about Blue Hub Capital as predatory lenders. So when I called, it happened to be Nardella. When I called them, she explained to me what was going on and said, "You got a second mortgage on your property?" I said, "No, I don't." She said, "Yes, you do." I said, "Hold the phone." I went and dug out the paperwork, ripped through the paperwork, and there it was. So we just said no. I just did not know that we signed it. You know how it is. You had a mortgage, you're closing, you're signing, you're happy, they saved your house, you're thinking you got this big sigh of relief. You know, we didn't have an attorney. That was our mistake. You were right, Priscilla. You got to have a lawyer, no matter how experienced you are. I owned a couple of houses before this, thought I knew what I was doing, which I didn't, and they took advantage. We had to pay a 25% markup to get the mortgage. So what they did was they bought the house from Bank of America and then sold it back to us with a 25% markup and a 6.3 something percent interest. So you had a 25% markup and a high interest rate. And unbeknownst to us, you had that sham, that shared appreciation mortgage. Should you pay off the mortgage, 50% of the equity is due. If you try to refinance, that's why they said they don't do it. Because if you got to refinance, you got to pay that. Or if you want to convey the title to your children, you have to pay that SAM. And in my case, it's 50%. So we just been involved in the battle. I've learned a very valuable life lesson. But I tell you one thing, people do matter. When you fight, we win, as you say, Priscilla. When we fight, we win, and we're winning. God is on our side. We're going to win. We're claiming this victory, and we're not going to stop until we do win. It just shows you how corrupt people can be, how immoral. Can you imagine being that senior family, that couple that sold their house, and they got, at the end of the day, all the money went to Blue Hub Capital, $89,000, and they walked away with $17 and change. That is immoral. How could you do that to somebody? It's immoral.
That's a crime. That's a crime. They need to be locked up for that. I mean, they're no better than anybody going out here robbing somebody, sticking somebody up. They're no better.
And listen, Blue Hub that's why these laws are needed, because they need to be upfront. When you rent a car, that piece of paper, you're not gonna read every single line on it. You expect them to give you a car that's operational, that's in good condition, that's gonna take you from point A to B, because that's what they say they do. That's what they say they do. I don't bring a lawyer with me when I sign that rental agreement. I trust that Blue Hub is going to do what they say, that rental car is going to do what they say they do. It's the same thing when we sign these mortgages. Many of us have been homeowners before, but Blue Hub should say and do what they say they're going to do. And they didn't. And I am not going to have that keep me a victim, keep me in the sharecropping program. Because it's not right. It's not right. We came in here with our dignity. We came in here with the contract they didn't uphold, and we are not going to be the victims of it. It's not the shame game. That day is gone, has come and gone.
There's no shame to the game. See, at first I was embarrassed and ashamed to tell people, but I come to realize they just took advantage. And what people do, they tend to blame the victim. You say you should have known better. But like Nardella said, when Madoff did his Ponzi scheme, no one said those folks were ignorant. No one said, they just said, we gotta get the money back. We're gonna put the criminals in jail.
Yes.
The same thing with us. I don't have to be ashamed. This could have happened to anyone. Since I've had that mortgage for over 10 years, 12, 13, whatever years it is, I've never missed a payment. My credit score is excellent. I shouldn't even be in a subprime mortgage. When you look at my portfolio, it should say, okay, we can loan to this person. People make mistakes, and we've corrected the mistakes, but we shouldn't have to pay at the mercy, behind criminals. We should not be taken advantage of. They should not be allowed to exploit us. And this is what this is. It's exploit. When you look at the judge's ruling, which is public information, he helped me understand it. They did something called loan splitting. They own the mortgage that holds the mortgage. They own NSP that holds the SAM, and they are Blue Hub Capital. They own all the entities involved. That was the game. That was the game they played.
Yeah.
That was the game. Thank you.
Yeah. They literally, and they continue to do this to us, I'm wondering when we gonna wake up, because this is, we need to start a program called How Not to Lose Your Home, I mean, it just is, these people, they prey on us. They prey on us because they know, people go through stuff, you lose your job, you get laid off, you lose a family member, or you got, life happens. But they take that life experience or whatever we're going through and they use it against us to take what we have worked hard to get from us. I remember when before around the time that MAHA, the Mass Affordable Housing Alliance, was being created, and they were literally giving and they always prey like on the seniors, the elderly. Those are the ones that they go after first, and they were giving them home improvement loans at a high interest rate, and it got out of hand. People were literally losing their homes. Someone said they took a red line and put it right through Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan. And so I cannot believe that we have been here almost an hour. We got 4 minutes left. Thank you, Pastor. And so I just, 4 minutes is not a long time, but I just want to thank you all for coming on. And the next time, maybe we all can come in person. I know Nadella lives so I know it's not easy for her to let our people know what is going on and what to do and what not to do to keep them from going down this road. So Nadella, you got 2 minutes.
We need you to come out. This is a people campaign. If you need more information, go to our website at www.ncapl.org. That's www.ncapl.org. And we will get back to you, and we're going to keep fighting. And thank you so much, Priscilla. Thank you so much, Pastor. We really couldn't do this without the support of you as well. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being a soldier in the army. You too, Derek. You too, Ursula. Because we are the people and we have the power. That's right.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you
Pastor,
very
we're out of time. Thank you, Ursula. And you will do this again. We'll do this again. So
Okay.
people power with Priscilla.
Thank you. Look, I'm so sorry. I wish I could have